There we go. So yeah, I'll post the recording to YouTube, and then we'll send everybody an email with the link to it. So welcome everyone. I'm really glad to see this crowd. We are going to take a look at what it looks like to onboard for Real Chem in the winter spring semester. And I'm going to demonstrate things like creating your course and configuring it. Uh, Actually, let me back up. I'm going to start with, I'm going to demonstrate the LMS connection pathway because that is the most common use case. I'm going to demonstrate it in Canvas, but it is relatively straightforward in all the major LMSs. We have documentation for the others, Brightspace, Blackboard, Moodle, um, and we're happy to help you if you need directions. We have directions for them, but if you need assistance, we can help you out. But I'm going to demonstrate connecting RealChem to Canvas, show you what you have to do to get your students started, and the few things that you want to take care of with the course configuration beforehand. And I like to keep these things really informal. So if anybody wants to just interrupt me and stop and ask a question, I love to run things that way. I do not like speaking into a black hole and just hoping that people are getting it. I really want to answer your questions. Um, Devin, can I share the recorded video email after the meeting ends? I won't. Well, it's going to take some time for the meeting. I'm going to upload it to YouTube and then share it with the team that does the communications. Um, but I would be happy to send out the URL to you guys. You might just get a second email then as part of the group. Um, so yeah, I'll shoot you an email as soon as we are done. It would help if you gave me a reminder at the end, just to help me remember. All right. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
I was just letting everybody know that I'm going to demonstrate how to build your course and configure it in uh, build it in Canvas and then configure it to your needs. You know, most of the early getting started stuff. Oh, we've got a second Devon. All right, two Devons. All right, welcome Devon number two.
Hi.
Okay, so let's get started. Um, I am going to share my screen and show you. Let's start with Safari, which is where I've got this. All right, so what everybody is seeing here is the OLI Canvas instance where I've got a bunch of courses that are on my dashboard. And right here is the RealChem demo course that I'm going to use to demonstrate how to add the link in Canvas. Like I mentioned earlier, we have instructions for the other ones. They are very straightforward. It's a matter of adding a Torus link to your shell. So as long as you have worked with your LMS administrator or somebody at your institution has in order to get Torus added as a tool, you will be able to take advantage of that tool by adding a link to it in your course. This is the way that we generally suggest people do it in Canvas, where you click on Settings in your nav menu, and under Navigation here, you will find that one of the disabled navigation tools is OLI Torus. So you can drag it up here and place it anywhere you like. Alternatively, you can right click on these things and enable them, and it will drop it into the list here for you. I'm just going to put OLI Torus at the top and save. And now the Torus tool, which was added to Canvas globally earlier as an available tool, has now been added locally in my shell. When you first click it, it is just a launch link that is generic. It does not point to anything specific. There's no material associated with this Torus link. What it does is it takes you to a configuration tool. Yours is going to look essentially just like this. You won't have the cuisine of northern Spain, which is also associated with my account. You will see RealChem 1 and RealChem 2 down here in the selector area. If you are zoomed in real tight, I want to show you what that looks like. If your browser is zoomed in, it can get a little confusing. You may not know that these are here, so you'll need to click inside this box and scroll. Alternatively, you can use this viewer to see it as a list rather than as tiles. But I generally keep mine zoomed out to about here. And I'm going to choose RealChem 1. What it has done in Canvas is it has inherited the name of the course that it sits in, but you can change that if you want. Anything that you want your students to see when they log in is fine. The course section number is for record keeping purposes only. This is not exposed. It does not have to be accurate. We generally suggest that you use something like your catalog number, but you may not know it. You know, whatever you're going to call it is fine. Winter, spring, 26. But you do have to fill it out with something. And then you choose how your class meets. Again, this is for record keeping only. We are eventually going to connect this to the, my understanding is that we are going to connect it to the scheduling tool in order to help you better design or more easily design your schedule based on how you meet. But for the most part, this is just for record keeping it for the time being. So I'm just going to mention, or I'm going to select that we meet only in person. And we have lectures on Monday and Wednesday. And then you have to enter the start date and the time. I will just select today, starting now. We will end in approximately 3 months. So let's go to, or 4 months. Let's go to the middle of May. Okay. The only thing that these actually control are enrollment times, and the course start date is also associated with the payment grace period. If your course has a payment associated with it, we've got one more person coming in. If your course has a payment associated with it, then it is generally based on the start date. It will usually be 14 days after the start date. If you need to arrange for earlier access, and like let's say my course is starting on the 14th and I'm opening it today for my students, but I don't want to lose all 14 days of grace period, reach out to us and we'll tack on another 7 days to your specific course. But the default is 2 weeks. So students have 2 weeks to work through the course and without paying, and all of their data is retained. But that grace period, those 14 days are linked to the start date. They won't be able to get in until the start date. And when it comes to the end date, the only thing the end date controls is new enrollments. So after the end date, you and the students who are already part of the course roster will be able to access it forever. As long as your LMS grants permission to students to be able to reach that course section, they will still have access to that forever. If you're a direct delivery user, which means you're doing a login on the web rather than using a single sign-on in your LMS, then that point is moot and you can access that forever. But again, the end date just controls the ability to enable new enrollments by students. So on the 16th, no new students can be added. The preferred date for your scheduling is, it defaults to midnight. That's what most people want for the submission of their scored assessments. So, you know, I'm just going to leave it as midnight, and my time zone is the Eastern time zone. You'll want to change that to wherever you are. Okay, so when you're not having to explain this, this usually takes about 30 seconds. So the course is now configured with the off-the-shelf configuration of content and settings. And I will go ahead and show you what the major changes are that you want to pay attention to. Does anybody have any questions yet? Been going on for about 9 minutes without stopping. Let me
Um,
take a look at the chat. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
I ha oh, I don't know if I had a question, but it might be
Hmm.
more on my admin side. I was one of the people that had, I think they just got it installed this morning.
Hmm.
And I use Brightspace.
Hmm.
If I go under the existing activities, I'm not seeing that OLI Taurus. That's where it should be, right? Under the existing activities.
Yeah, are you following that the
Yeah.
instruction? Yeah, then
Yep.
they might need to, even if it's installed, they might need to make it visible.
Okay.
So I would reach out to, I'm
Yep.
sorry, is it Norma?
Also, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
reach out
send
to
an,
Norma and see if she can change the visibility. That
okay.
but that is where you would find it. You would find it, yeah, for if anybody else here is a Brightspace user, after you have added is it add a module? I forget
Yes.
the
Yep.
yeah, when you add a module, you then use an existing activity
Mm-hmm.
as the location for the source of your OLI Taurus link, and it should be visible in that list.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry,
Sorry to
sorry,
interrupt.
Devin. No,
Oh,
that's okay.
thank you.
And
Yep.
I'm sorry, I joined like 10 minutes late.
Hey,
And
gosh.
so I'm also using Brightspace, but
Hmm.
in my OLI Taurus account, I cannot choose the course. I mean, the drop-down menu, I
Hmm.
think the course is not added to my account or somehow.
Yeah, you have to be added to the community. I know we were trying to get the Dallas uh, LMS connected, but I don't think that happened. I have not seen the notification come through. So let me add you real quick to that
Okay.
community.
Yeah.
And this is what enables people who are using direct delivery uh,
Yeah.
to be
So,
able to see the material.
oh,
There you
you
go.
have to be in the community to be able to create a new section. That is what you mean?
Well, yeah, because the real chem material we have not made public. It's not in the quote unquote public catalog,
Okay.
because it has a lot of experimental materials in it, and we are continuing to tailor it, and it's still, being created and researched upon. So we haven't made
Hmm.
it public yet.
Yeah.
We
So,
just make it available to everybody who is joining us, like you all have.
mhm. Okay. So in the first, so you're probably in the third part here out of these three. In the first one, it says select your course materials. It doesn't show up anything on mine.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm adding you to the community. Go ahead and
Okay.
try refreshing that page. I've added you
Okay.
just now, and let me know if you're able to see it there. You
Uh,
might have to do a search or scroll.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
and
uh,
let me take a look at the chat. So Devin Mulvey, Devin initial joiner. Um, I think that can you remind me where you are, Devin Mulvey? What school you're at? And Elaine, where are you?
I'm at Cal State Long Beach.
Okay, Cal State Long Beach, I do believe does not have a Moodle integration yet.
No,
So you'll be
we only have Canvas, so
or Canvas. You're
yeah.
not a Canvas. What I mean is you have not had Torus integrated yet, so you'll be a direct delivery user as well for this term. We'll work on we'll work with your Canvas team. Devon St. Bonaventure, I believe, unless they, yeah, I'm not seeing any reason why you wouldn't be able to do this. The integration from my side, you know, appears to be to have been done a long time ago. So if you're not seeing it, then it might be that they're controlling visibility from semester to semester. I worked with somebody yesterday who had it turned off after their fall integration, and they had to have it the visibility resurfaced again. So, oh, okay, cool, thanks. All right, any other questions? All right, looks good. I'm going to move on. And so, after creating your course, there are a few things to look at, and I'm going to show them to you in a particular order because of their dependencies. The first thing is to customize the content because you want this to be in order so that when you apply a schedule later, it makes sense and you don't have to rearrange material after creating a schedule. So when you click customize content, the customization form taken here is that you can rearrange material, you can remove material, you can hide individual pages if you want, but you cannot do authoring. This is not, when we say customize content, we don't mean to imply that you're able to add questions or change content in any way. It's really just about arrangement and removal of material. These are all units in the file folder that's meant to indicate that they are a container. These are pages that are at the beginning of the course. So you can move any of these things by dragging and dropping. It's real simple. But if you ever wanted to add materials it's very common for our RealChem users to mix pieces of what's in Chem 2 into Chem 1 and vice versa. Let me know and I will help you with that because, like I said, we don't make it public. So your visibility in this add materials button is blank. You won't be able to see the content in order to do it yourself. So I'll need to help you because there's a lot of experimental stuff that we don't want people actually accidentally implementing in their courses yet. So if you need help remixing, let me know. That'll be at a later time. We'll meet one-on-one. So all you'll do is rearrange the materials, remove whatever you don't need. You can click into a unit and see what's inside of it. So you can see I'm in the chemical bonding and molecular geometry unit, which ends with the chemical bonding and molecular unit checkpoint. So every unit has a checkpoint at the end, but we also have modules within each. So think of these as chapters. So each of these topics is going to have its own checkpoint. They're shorter, but ionic and covalent bonding has a module checkpoint. So do Lewis structures, so does molecular structure and polarity. They are shorter than the overall checkpoint, but then the unit checkpoint covers questions from all of those topics. All right. Any questions before we move on? Okay. So I'm going to head back to the Manage page in a moment. Once you have arranged your material, 1 second, I'll check the thing. Access the RealChem 2 material once you're in Torus via an existing link. So Devin, when you click that link in your new shell, you're not seeing RealChem 2. Let me make sure that St. Bonaventure is in the community then, and then I will go on to the next topic. Just a moment. That's interesting. It appears as though you should be able to see it. You're in the community, so I think we're going to have to troubleshoot this at the end of the meeting, if you don't mind. It defaults to RealChem 1, but are you able to scroll and see RealChem 2 as well? Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll take a look at that at the end of the meeting. Sorry about that. Okay, so after customizing the content and having everything arranged the way you want, I'm going to recommend that the next thing you do is scheduling and assessment settings. Now, there are two kinds of scheduling. We have what we tend to refer to as the soft schedule, which is just a recommended pacing schedule. It has no control whatsoever over access to anything. It does not govern what materials are in the course. It doesn't govern when you can access them. It only is presented to students in their interface as a recommended schedule for staying on track based on your start and your end dates. And what that looks like is coming here to the scheduling and assessment settings, and I'm on the schedule tab and I click set schedule. I'm going to choose all the days of the week so that it recommends that the students work in order to pace themselves on all days of the week, because most of them are doing at least something every day. And I'm going to click continue. Now you have the option to have the system automatically apply end dates based on, or due dates, I should say, for all of the scored assessments. Those are the checkpoints that I showed you, and the explorations. The explorations are those full page interactive synthesis activities. There are, in RealChem 1, there are like 9 or 10 of them, and in RealChem 2, I think there are 5 or 6 of them so far. We're building more. And those generate scores, so they appear as scored items in the assessment settings here, and they would have a due date applied to them. If you want the system to just automatically apply due dates, that's great. You can go in and check whether it aligns well with your syllabus. You're probably going to find, though, that especially in the spring, when you have spring break, it will be suggesting, or it will be applying due dates to something during spring break week, which means you're going to have to change that schedule, and then you might have to change on either side of it. If you think that's going to be frustrating, then I would recommend using do not set assessment due dates. But if you want to go ahead and use the tool and see how well it works out, that's great. I'll just leave it as is and use it to set the assessment dates and show you what it looks like. All right, so we have completed that. And what this does is it applies dates to these each of these units based on how much material is in them. So the larger units have, they consume more days of the calendar. The shorter units consume less calendar space. But what it does do as well, which you're probably going to want to undo, is it schedules things that don't make sense to schedule. So these things at the end, the appendix, the glossary, those don't make sense for a student pacing calendar. So what you do is it takes about 10 seconds, you just come here and you remove them from the schedule, because the scheduler takes into account everything in the course. So what I have started doing is recommending that you actually leave this part at the end, maybe leave this acknowledgements page, because on the last week of your course, you might not actually be suggesting to students that they're doing new learning. That's their study week and their finals week. So it might be best for the pacing schedule to end a day or two early. So, leaving a little bit at the end in order to consume that piece of the calendar can be a good thing. So the calendar runs from 1/7, which is today, to 5/19, which is the last day, and it lays this out for the students. I'll show you what that looks like from the student perspective in a few minutes. If you want to, you can actually dig in and drill down inside of each of these, and you can click on the items, and you'll see that this is where it inherited that due time preference for 11:59 p.m. So the exploration and the the unit checkpoint are both due at 11:59 p.m. and they're due on different days based on when that scheduler arranged for them. But you can change these things with other pages as well. So I know that this is just an intro page and it's not a great example, but if there were things in this course that you wanted to use as in-class activities, you could come down here and instead of it being suggested by a certain day, you can make it an in-class activity on that day. And it changes what is communicated to the students to let them know on this day, this is not something that you need to read ahead of time. It's something we're going to work on together. All right. Any questions about how this soft scheduler works? Oh, the last thing that I didn't demonstrate, by the way, is that all of these are under your control. You can grab them and you can move them around. And as I move, you can see the dates at the bottom left changing so that you have an idea of what those exact dates are. But if you go to the end, either end, you'll see that the cursor changes from a hand to a pipe with the arrows, and at that point you can click and extend or contract your calendar blob.
Is that something like after the due date's passed, and let's say you want to have a grace period or some students ask for extra time, can you
Well,
go back and
remember, this doesn't control access to the pages. Only due
okay,
dates do. This is just a suggested reading schedule.
okay,
And so this ends on 131. On February 1st, their students are still going to be able to read everything in atoms, molecules, and ions, except the things with hard due dates that are in the past. The explorations, the things that generate scores that you don't want them to be able
hmm,
to do late. Now, those, yeah, you can absolutely move them.
okay,
You can if you need to extend those, you can extend those here, or you can extend it by choosing a new date for this field. But you can also do that here on the assessment settings page, where you can change all of the due dates, or you can set exceptions for individual students.
awesome, thank you.
Sure. But all of these other things, everything in Torus is considered either a scored page or a practice page. Practice meaning, they're learning something. And there's almost always interaction. Unless it's a wrap-up page or an intro page, they're practicing something on generally every page. So they're all practice pages except for the scored pages. These practice pages are not ever, ever restricted by these dates. These are just reading suggestion dates. So what I'll do is I'll save this and head over to assessment settings. And now this is where you see all of the scored pages. So even if they're not checkpoints, because they can be explorations, they're all going to be contained here with their default values. The due dates have been applied based on what the scheduler set, but remember you're going to want to check those against your syllabus to make sure that they are accurate and they fit with how you want your semester to unfold. There are only 10 of these per page. So this course has 43 of them. Remember, there's one at the end of every module, one at the end of every unit, and then there are 9 or 10 explorations. In fact, I can tell you exactly how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm sorry, there are 7, not 9 or 10. So there are 7 explorations in here, which I found by using the search tool. But anything that generates a score is going to be here. And if you scroll to the right, you will see that there are more settings that you can apply. You have a late policy, and if you want to see its description, you just hover over the label at the top. All of these can be changed. Scoring strategy of best is what we apply to every checkpoint. There is no notion of different scores for the explorations. So this one, whatever you change it to, it's not going to actually affect them. Grace period only matters for if there is a due date. If you don't have due dates, then grace period is a moot setting, as is time limit. Targeted retake mode is the default. Targeted retake mode means that on subsequent attempts, students only have to answer the questions they got wrong in the previous attempt. So if they answer 10 questions and they get 9 right, the second attempt, when targeted retake mode is enabled, they're given credit for 9 questions and they only have to answer 1. I recommend not changing the presentation or the scoring mode. Presentation mode is whether you want it in one scrollable page, which is what is traditional, or one at a time, which is like a carousel with a next button. But generally, students prefer the traditional because they can more easily navigate between the questions, especially if they have dependencies on them. Like if something is mentioned in the next question, it's helpful to be able to have it on the same page. Scoring mode, I do not suggest you change this. It can be confusing to students in courses where it isn't designed for score as you go, because when they change it to score as you go, then the student gets all of their attempts per question. So if you have 3 attempts, what it means is they answer question 1 and they get 3 bites at question 1, and then they never get another try. But if they think they have 3 attempts, they're going to think that they can submit their first submission and then have 2 more submissions available to them, and that it just isn't the case. So because this course was not designed for that, I suggest you do not change it. Replacement is how you want the questions that are algorithmically generated with variables to be treated on subsequent attempts. So if it uses variables and every student gets a different value within their question, do you want them to get the same question when they get it wrong, or do you want them to get the same question with new values on subsequent attempts? They can view feedback between their attempts, the question feedback, individual question feedback. They can view their answers in between attempts. These are under your control. Password is generally for proctoring an exam in person. It's just another hurdle that I recommend you don't use if you don't have a good reason to. And exceptions you'll find in 2 places, here and here. I'll get to that in a moment. But the last part is hints. Do you want to disallow hints in the assessments? And that's because the assessments use the same questions as the practice activities. And the practice activities generally all have hints in them. So when you're delivering them in the assessment, most people don't want the hints to be available to the students, so they disallow them. The student exceptions allow you to change any of these settings for an individual student for a single assessment. So when you have students in here, you'll be able to click Add New, and then you choose the student, and then you choose the assessment that you want to give them an exception on, and then what you want to change. Usually it is the due date, the number of attempts, or the time limit. Those are the 3 most common exceptions to grant to students. You only need to change the value that you want to be different for that student. And then advanced gating is for scheduling. William, I'll be with you in a moment about that. Advanced gating is for applying dates to the units, for example. Like I only want unit 5 to be available on a particular day. It's closed until May 1st, for example. Bill, can you tell me more about your experience with the exceptions?
Yeah, so I had it all set up, and then I
Mm-hmm.
had some students that were out for medical reasons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and tried to give them an exception, and it went
Okay.
through on my end, but then it never appeared for them to be able to complete the assignment.
Okay. I will, after this meeting, can you ping me? And what I'll do is I'll head over to your course and take a look at the settings and dig in on that.
Well, how about I'm going to do that was Gen Chem 1. So
Okay.
what if I set up my Gen Chem 2 and then I can reach out to you and then make
Yeah,
sure
that's
I have it
fine.
set up?
Sure, sure.
Okay, I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other questions about how I'm sorry, I clicked the manage button without asking my full question. Any other questions about how the scheduling and assessment settings work? Possible to reopen a particular student's attempt on a checkpoint after the due date has passed and grades have been logged. Um, well, you cannot reopen an individual attempt. What you can do is grant that student an exception where you give them another attempt and the due date has not yet been reached. So for that student, you either give them a due date that has not yet, that's in the future, or you apply no due date and you grant them more attempts. And then their subsequent attempt, as long as the scoring model makes sense, their subsequent attempts will overwrite um, the the previous attempt. Well, I can't show here. I can't show it because there aren't students here. But if what I can show you is you'll add a student and choose the assessment, and then let's just assume that it's this first one. What you'll do is, let's say today is January 15th. That student that you just selected needs an extra day and an extra attempt. So you've already selected Jane Doe, and you're going to fill in the due date of January 14th at midnight, and you're going to grant her 4 attempts instead of 3, and then save that exception. And Jane should be able to, because the due date has not yet passed, as long as there's no availability date, she should still be able to access that, um, and that will enable her to
Now
be
that
able to
might
see that.
be what happened to me. I don't think
Ah,
I've changed that.
okay, okay, yeah,
That might be it right there. Yeah, that might be it right there.
okay, okay, yeah, and the other one to keep in mind is the late policy. Disallowing late starts and late submits can when you disallow them, the due date is very strictly um,
Right. I
uh,
didn't disallow them.
used.
I allowed them like the
Okay,
default. Yeah.
okay, cool. All right. Okay. Any other questions about how these tools work? And by the way, this is not the end of our conversation. I'm here all semester for you guys. We have a I have a link that you guys can set up meetings directly with me one on one at your convenience whenever you have questions like these. And I also will field your emails.
Are this might not be the right time to ask it, but are we able to go in and see students' individual attempts on
Yes, you can.
so we can see all their attempts and everything? Okay.
Yep, absolutely. You can see their attempts. You can see their scores on every attempt. You can see the timestamps on every attempt, and you can see their individual answers on every attempt. Um, I don't have that to demonstrate here, but essentially the easiest way to do it is through overview and then students. And you will have a roster of your students here. And if you just click on their name, you'll be able to navigate to any of their work and review their answers.
Great. And on the instructor side, if we look at the questions, it'll give us the worked out um, answers, how it's looking for it to answer.
Yeah, there are two ways to view it from an instructor standpoint. Um, One is to preview the course as the student. And what that does is it lets you jump in and see these um, just as the student does. So let's go to one of these assignments. Actually, I might not be able to do it because it's scheduled in the future. Yeah, I think it's not going to let me try it because or will. Oh, they're all available. They're all available. I forgot. Um, you're seeing it just like a student would. So you're not seeing the feedback and the answer, the hints and things. Um, and oops, I didn't mean to close it entirely. I meant to go back. Let me show you what it looks like on a practice page. So on any practice page, when you are using the preview, the student preview mode, you really do see it just like you're a student. The questions are here and you can work through them and see the correct answers and the incorrect answers and the feedback that's associated with them if you like. But
Is that what
alternatively,
the student would see also?
yes, this is what students
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Alternatively, you have another one that is kind of clunky, but also kind of powerful at the same time. Under overview, you can instead enter, this is designed for containers, so that's why those first 3 pages weren't visible. You can open the course as an instructor, and what it does is it gives you the sort of the authoring view of any of those pages. So let me go back to that same page that we were on before, if I remember. No, I don't remember. Okay, here we are. Um, now, as an instructor, excuse me, I oh wait, it didn't do that. Did I choose the wrong thing? Let me just try a different page. Here, what you see are is a it's supposed to be a different view where yeah, so this question is now, it looks like the authoring version, or yeah, this is what it looks like in the authoring environment, where you have the question and you can see boy, this is a bad example because it's not very clean. Trying to find a so here's a
There's
new
a answer key button. I asked because like
yeah
in my previous like online homework, sometimes a student would come for help and I would try to do it with them and I just couldn't, it wouldn't come up, and then I'd look at the answer key and it's like, oh, they wanted like one less decimal
yeah
place or some random thing, or they wanted an extra space on the unit, and that's,
oh
sometimes
yeah
you just want to see what it's looking for.
you'll always be able to see the answers as an instructor.
Okay.
um So this one is going to be giving credit between 20.16 and 20.2.
Should be 2-0 then for
Yeah. So this is boy, these are confusing because you guys have never seen the authoring interface. I think most of you haven't, but you can see the answer keys, the hints that are associated with them, if there are any, and if it's blank, then there are none. If there are dynamic variables that have been created, if there's an explanation, the explanation is generally given after 3 incorrect answers, because it can be there can be questions that are impossible to know the answer to. So we want students to be able to see the answer after a certain number of incorrect attempts. But that is, so just as a refresher, the way to get to that instructor view is here on the overview page under course content. You have to navigate to one of the containers, unit 1, and then open it as an instructor, and then you can navigate around within the course and see those answers. We're working on a more user-friendly version of that. This was a sort of quick and dirty way of plugging that need with the authoring interface plugged in. All right, so we have talked about customizing the content, meaning rearranging and removing materials. We talked about the scheduler and the assessment settings. The last thing to show you is the LMS gradebook tool. So down here under scoring, you have a link to manage the LMS gradebook. The first thing you want to do here is test the connection, make sure everything is working as expected. It is. And then you have a choice. Update LMS line items is what you want to consider now. What this does is it adds all the scored items to your gradebook right now. One column for each in the order that they appear in the course with their title at the top, and it is irreversible. You can delete them again, manually, but you can't pull them back from here. You can go into your LMS and delete them, but deleting them will never prevent students from being able to submit their scores and have that column added back to the gradebook. This is most useful for instructors who want to prepare at the beginning of the semester by arranging gradebook manipulations of some kind. Different LMSs give you different capabilities, like point conversions or like grouping. You could, for example, consider this homework. You're not going to use the scores formally. You're just going to tell students, hey, if you get a 75% or better on all of these checkpoints, then you get a full 20% of your grade for your homework. That's your homework grade. And you would, you might, I'm not an LMS expert, so please take this with a grain of salt. You might be able to do things like arrange them into a homework group within your LMS gradebook, and then apply certain parameters to the students' participation in order for them to be able to earn their 20% or whatever portion of that 20% you want to grant them. Most people just use them as traditional scores. They just, they actually use these as scored items. And they just let them go, and they either don't count them toward the student's grade or they do. And they end up with an average of some kind at the end. There are no rules. It's all up to you how you want to do it, but you cannot prevent the scores from coming across. They will end up in your gradebook. If you don't want them to be in the gradebook at the beginning of the semester, then simply don't press this, and each scored item will be added to the gradebook when the first student completes it the first time. Aha, that's good. That's good to know, Elaine. I'm glad to know that worked. Was it effective that you were able to do that point conversion?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it doesn't show up as a scary like 100 points, So
Yeah.
and then as far as points go, it's a little bit more manageable because I like to set my points in like fives and tens, so it's useful.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad that worked. Like I said, I am not an LMS expert, and definitely not an LMS expert outside of Canvas. So I suggest that you might experiment with this and see what you're able to do in terms of manipulation and conversion tools. But I don't myself have good experience with it. So the community of practice meetings would be a really great place to talk that through with your peers. We have those every month, I believe, or are planning to. If your students come to you and say that their scores have not been passed over to the LMS reliably, there may have been a communication error, and you can resync scores per assessment here. But you can also find in that same scoring area on the Manage page a link to view the scores that failed to sync, and they will be logged here, and then you can retry them all. The system will try 5 times for each item in order to synchronize it with your gradebook. And if it fails, there was a clear communication issue somewhere in the pipe between the two systems. And you'll need to come here and retry. Any questions about that? The last thing I was going to show was what it looks like to get your students started. In the LMS, it's real simple. You just send them to this link. That's all there is. They click the link, and the first time that they click it, they will be prompted to accept the terms of service, which is essentially that OLI is a research project and we anonymize student data for learning science research. And they can opt in or opt out of that. And then they enter the course. That's it. That's all there is. There's no password. There's no hurdles to jump over other than um, opting in or opting out of the research. When it comes to direct delivery, however, I'm going to change to my other browser and show you.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, I got access because I'm an idiot and I missed a step.
Okay. Oh, so you're
But
good. You found it?
so yeah, so I'm
Good.
putting in the course name and the course number, and my question is like this will be the first semester I'm using that. If we reuse course numbers at our college,
Mhm.
each fall has a course number, each spring has the same from every fall has the same course number. Um, but in the name, I might switch the year. If
Yeah.
I use the course number for this spring and I want to use it again for next spring, will that cause a problem or will I have to indicate a
Gr
different course number?
Great question. They will not conflict. You can name them
Okay.
anything you want. It does not have to be unique.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
you got it. Uh, just a moment, and I will be right back sharing. We're at 2:54 my time, so we've got a few more minutes. I just wanted to um, give you a quick look at this last thing, and then we can answer those last questions. Where are my demos? All right, here's one of our demos. Head back and share. This was the course was being QA'd and it's direct delivery. So here's what you're going to do as a direct delivery user. If you are not delivering through your LMS with single sign-on, here's what you need to do. You're going to need to come down here to edit section details first under the manage header. And you're going to need to make sure that registration is open and your course requires enrollment. So you're going to flag both of these and save. Oh, you can choose, this is a very terribly worded feature here, but omit student email verification means this won't require students to validate that their email address was entered correctly. So if they entered a typo, they probably won't know because they won't get a verification step. But if you check this, it removes a step for them. It's perfectly fine to do it. They're just going to need to sign in with the same typo email that they used before every time. Um, so you'll make sure that registration is open and that it requires enrollment. If it doesn't require enrollment, then your students can access it as guests, and you will have no idea who they are, and no data will be associated with them. So it is important that this be checked. Then once your course is ready for enrollment, you are going to create your invitation link, which is a bit of a misnomer because you're not really inviting them. You're just posting a URL for them. You're going to come here. This will be missing. This line is not going to be here, and you're going to click section end, which is going to create a new invite link that expires after at the end of your course. So when you click section end, which is there, I've done it. This one expires January 30th, which is what the end date is for this QA course. What you're going to do is you're going to copy this URL and share it with your students. And all that does is when they click it, it prompts them to create a new account and enroll in your course. And it takes about 2 minutes, maybe a minute. But that's all there is. And then when they sign back into Proton, they will be able to just see it there on their student My Courses dashboard. It will be there from then on. You only need to use the enrollment link, the invitation link, one time. And then from then on, they just need to log in at the Proton website. Again, this is just for direct delivery. It does not apply at all to the LMS experience. The LMS, the whole system is either or. There is never a mixture of students who can access your LMS course by signing in on the website via direct delivery. That would invite the ability for students to create 2 accounts and have their data forked, and it would be really messy. So it's either LMS delivery or it's direct delivery, and they use those two. Those are the only ways that they differ. Is the student sign up experience and access experience. Everything else is the same from the student and the instructor perspective. All right, so I haven't checked the chat in a minute. So any other questions? Okay, awesome. Somebody please chime in and remind me what we were going. I said that I would. Oh, I have another meeting. I have a 3 o'clock meeting. Devin, are you the person who, the reminder to share the video? Yes, thank you. I will send that out as soon as I can. It's as soon as we leave the meeting, it will start processing and I will upload it to YouTube. Let me take a screenshot of everybody who's here so that I have, I can, because we didn't log this. This was not there was no registration here, so it's just show up. I will send everybody the email after it is uploaded to YouTube. And yes, Devin, I will look into why, Devin number 1, I will look into why you don't have RealChem 2. I'm surprised that you don't, because your school is in the community. So let me look into that. Thank you for the reminder. All right. And William, if you see any more, I'm sorry to interrupt. William, if you have any more information about what may have happened, I'm happy to take a look at your situation and
okay, thanks.
help you figure that out. Yeah. Go ahead, Devin.
I'm so sorry. Because
That's
I logged
okay.
in late, maybe you said this at the beginning. So for me to find this, like, do I just go through the Brightspace link? Or is that when I go under manage, there's a URL. Like if I just want to put it in a bookmark or something, can I just
do not, because you have to authenticate through Brightspace first.
Okay.
Okay. The platform needs to know that you're coming through the right door. That's how that's exactly how permission is granted. So students would not be able to share this with their peers.
Okay.
If they give a URL to somebody who is not in the section, they can't click the link and get permission to reach this.
Sure. But just for me as an instructor, because
Same
my
thing.
previous, okay.
I mean, it'll work if you're authenticated at the time. If you're authenticated from a previous click through, then yes, your
Mhm.
bookmark will work. But if your bookmark
Okay.
ever gives you a 500 error or a not permitted error of some kind, it's because you're not authenticated through the LMS link. Make
Thank
sense?
you.
You got it.
Yep.
You got it.
Thank you.
All right.
How
My next oh
can
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just
That's
briefly, I know
okay.
you have a meeting. So, I just wanted to say I think I might be in RealChem 2 based on fuddling around a little bit with it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I just need confirmation that it is in fact the case. That's all.
Okay.
So it could probably be
Sure.
handed over email or maybe a brief meeting at a later date.
Well, I'm doing a real fast search real quick on your name and I will look at well, no, it looks like it was built on RealChem 1.
Yeah.
So, do you need you can try deleting that course if it's not if you haven't done any real configuration yet.
No, 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 not yet.
Scroll down to the red delete the course link and try
So,
that.
yeah, delete section, you mean?
Yeah, delete
Yeah.
section and then try again and see if RealChem 2 is in that list. You may have been zoomed in and it wasn't visible.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
You got
Hey
it. All
Hal,
right.
I know you have to
Yep.
go, but if folks have, I can stay for a few minutes if folks have Canvas, especially Canvas
Sadly,
questions.
I have to use this room. Hi,
Oh,
Karen.
okay.
I'm
All
so
right.
Oh,
sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not heading off to a different area. I'm using this room for the next meeting. But I appreciate that, Elaine.
you got
Elaine,
it.
are you going to be in any of the community of practice meetings? Maybe you could show
Ye-
it then.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm usually on the Friday ones. If folks want to join, they do have them Thursdays and Fridays. So yeah,
Okay,
and
cool.
I put my email in the chat too if folks want to reach up one on one.
All right.